So why is ultrasound abused? Well, for a number of reasons. One is that it's radiation. We haven't been told the truth about the fact that it's radiation. And the radiation causes harm. The radiation causes brain damage. It causes organ damage. It causes birth defects. It causes autism and ADHD. People blame vaccines for autism. But the fact is, ultrasound is a major player. The damage to these children is being done in the womb with ultrasound. And so the children who are thrown over the edge after vaccination have already been damaged by ultrasound in the womb. And I have massive amounts of data to back this up. In my book, The Dark Side of Prenatal Ultrasound, there's 1,800 citations, okay, to back up what I'm saying to you. The unbelievable amounts of data that show the damage this technology is doing has been kept under wraps. But the people that control the medical establishment have known for at least 100 years that this technology causes massive harm. And they expose our children to it because that's the goal. I'm being very direct with you right now. The goal is to alter the incoming children. And it is working. And I'll give you just one example to back up this little tidbit of that it's purposeful. So in the 1980s, data was revealed that showed that one exposure to ultrasound does the same amount of genetic damage as exposure to 250 X-rays.
What?
Take that in, just absorb that for a minute. So they knew that in the 1980s. Then in the early 90s, the FDA did a study of about 2,000 children living in Denver in the United States. And they found that the children exposed to ultrasound had fetal growth retardation, low birth weight. So what did they do? They turned around and raised the output levels on the obstetrical ultrasound machines, okay, eightfold, at least eightfold, 8 to 15-fold, depending on which study you're looking at. They raised the output limits, meaning the children that came in after about 1993, okay, were exposed to at least 8 to 15 times as much radiation as the children born between 1970, when they brought ultrasound into the picture, through the early 90s. And we know that autism started in the 1970s. This elephant has been sitting in the living room for 70 years. No, how many years? 50, 60 years. I do the math. So from 1970 to today, all the experts are scratching their head going, gee, I wonder what could be causing the autism epidemic. And yet when you look at the graphs and you see it started in 1970, and you see, right, that's when they introduced ultrasound, and you see ultrasound and autism going up at the same time, the usage of ultrasound during pregnancy and autism. Why can't these retarded so-called experts figure it out? And I'm going to tell you why, because they're covering it up, because they want to continue to hurt the children. All right, there's no other explanation for them not coming right out and saying it's ultrasound that's driving this epidemic, that's destroying millions of children and millions of family lives. Okay? So that's just one example. And to go even a little further with this, in the mid-90s is when they brought in the cell phones and the Wi-Fi. Okay, so now the children are going to be exposed to even more radiation because of parental use of cell phones and Wi-Fi. And now, of course, it's escalated off the charts with the cordless phones and the cordless printers and the security systems and the baby monitors. The radiation levels on the baby monitors are just off the charts. Okay, so now the children are so genetically damaged and so brain damaged that we've seen the IQ levels tanking since 1970. We've seen the autism rates go up. We've seen since 1970 male sperm counts have been reduced by at least 60%. And that's because ultrasound stops sperm production. Did you know that?
I wonder if it also stops testosterone, because we're seeing the feminization of the men as well, aren't we?
Well, yes, but it does stop sperm production. This I know because they're using it as a form of contraception. So 2 15-minute blasts to the adult male scrotum, and you have a minimum of 6 months infertility. It kills the sperm that are in the scrotum, and it stops the production of more sperm for at least 6 months. They also use ultrasound to create a vasectomy, meaning that what they do is they literally burn the vas deferens of adult men with the radiation burns things. So they burn the vas deferens with ultrasound, and then it causes a coagulation that blocks the sperm from getting to the penis. So they call this a form of non-invasive vasectomy that they are inducing with ultrasound. So, gee, I wonder what might be happening to the developing testes and ovaries of our babies. And there's a whole list of reproductive damage that I've put in my book to show this is the driving force behind the fertility crash. The radiation is the driving force. Do you want to say something?
I was just going to say, with the experience subjectively for the child in the womb when the ultrasound comes in, is it not also? It's almost like MK Ultra, is it not? Because it sort of traumatizes that child, potentially. So they're so dissociated, I imagine, from the pain and the shock of that maybe that's where the initial part of that entrainment starts, in terms of how society wants us almost in that dissociated state, so that they can implant commands. And I don't know if that's maybe one of the first places it starts, the inception of it.
100%.
Okay.
First of all, we know that ultrasound is super loud.
Yeah.
Okay. In the womb, it's been recorded at 120 decibels, which means it's like being in a subway station when the trains are coming in, or being next to a chainsaw when it's in operation. So it's terrifying to the babies in the womb. I heard an interview, and I put this in my book, with a 2.5-year-old child who was telling people there was thunder in the womb, and she was very afraid, and she had to get away from the thunder, so she went up in the clouds. And then the thunder went away. So what is this child describing is the fact that she dissociated. Her spirit left the body when it was experiencing the thunder, which is ultrasound.
Yeah.
Because she was so terrified of the noise. So dissociation is the state that they're looking for to begin the mind-controlled programming. And they can cause dissociation with ultrasound. They can also, in the same way that they use electroshock torture to wipe the memory of people, they're using ultrasound, which is electroshock torture, okay? And it wipes the genetic memory. There was one, this is totally confirmed a million times over, but there was one Russian scientist Peter Gariev, who noted that when he put a DNA molecule in an aqueous, a water solution, the molecule makes a melody of sounds. And then when you zap it with ultrasound, it puts out one monotonous note.
Mm.
And he said, oh my God, we've wiped out the genetic information of the DNA molecule. So we've wiped out the genetic ancestral memory of these children who are coming in not even knowing if they're male or female. This is how confused they are. Right? They have no understanding or connection with the reason for their incarnation and who they came here to be. They're developing alter identities known as, gender transitions and all this stuff.
Right.
These are alter identities of deeply traumatized people, young people, okay, who have no understanding of who they were meant to be and who they are. And ultrasound is a huge contributor.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah, totally. Because it's, you hear in the transgender movement, whatever you want to call it, but they're saying that, oh, when I was a kid, I felt like I was in the wrong body. How can you be in the wrong body? You're not in the wrong body. You're in the right body, but you've forgotten who you are. And instead of actually affirming their actual biology, they're calling it gender affirming care, which is to say that however you feel subjectively, don't worry, we'll give you the hormones and the surgery to move you to that. So they're kind of pandering to their sense of confusion and dissociation rather than actually anchoring them back into their bodies and who they actually are objectively, biologically. So it's not only are they torturing them, but they're actually then going along with their delusions that they've themselves created in these children, right?
And they also use surgical mutilation as a form of trauma-based mind control. So the more surgery a person is subjected to, the more likely or easily they are to be mind controlled.